The previous chapter, chapter 9, ended with the verse that said, "And they did not repent of their murders, or their sorceries, or their sexual immorality, or their thefts." Like I said, it mentions four things as the greatest sins that are being committed throughout the whole world, which is, um, well, as it is written in scriptures, surrounded by four malachim as the ones that are on the four corners of the earth. So it mentions four types of sin: murder, sorcery, sexual immorality, and theft. And also that was by the end of the sixth the sixth trumpet. So just a second. All right. So now chapter 10 verse 1 says, "I saw still another mighty malach, or mighty angel, coming down from heaven." So it says still because there were four malachim which he saw. I was thinking about chapter 8. In chapter 9 he saw the malach of the fifth trumpet and that of the sixth trumpet, and now he's seeing a different malach. So it's interesting because we have seen in chapter 8 and 9 pretty much six malachim, and now there comes a seven, which we would think is the one that will sound the seventh trumpet. And as we know, the seventh trumpet is the one in which the chosen few will be harvested, when the chosen few will be transformed into their new bodies to be gathered with the sovereign in the clouds, and then be taken to the firmament to sing the song of Moshe and the Lamb as written in Revelation 15. However, the seventh trumpet is heard at the end of chapter 11 of Revelation. So, as I have explained in the past, the book of Revelation is given in chronological order, yet there are certain chapters in which the Almighty pretty much tells us about what will happen throughout a period of time. Most of the chapters in which that happens has to do with the 3.5 years of the testimony of the two witnesses, or the 3.5 years of the beast having control over the earth. So there's like a parenthesis in which the Almighty tells us stuff that we need to know regarding what has passed and what is about to come. So this chapter 10, is one of those. So we saw chapter 8 and chapter 9 going in a chronological order because they had to do with the six first trumpets, with the first six trumpets. So after the six trumpets we come to chapter 10. We would expect the seventh trumpet, yet what we get is a different malach and a whole chapter regarding something separate. That's why the Almighty is giving us a separation between all the previous trumpets and the seventh, because, well, there are several reasons, but one of those is that by this moment the negative plagues, the plagues that would happen through the seals and the trumpets, would have happened already. For the seventh trumpet is actually a positive one, for that is when the chosen few will be gathered. So since all the plagues of destruction have been fulfilled, those of the first half, I want to make that clear, of the first half of the last seven, we are pretty much done with the first half, about to hear the seventh trumpet. So the Almighty tells us certain things that we need to know about what has happened and what is about to come to pass with the following chapters. So Just like in the menorah or the lampstand, there are 7 lamps, 7 lights. There's one in the middle which is used to light up or lit up the other candles, and that is the one that represents the Messiah or Moshe. So in this case, we heard of 6 malaks, and now comes the seventh, which would be the main one. For it says, I saw still another mighty malach coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. This is key, for we know that the Messiah would appear with the clouds of heaven. And for instance, we read in Acts 1, Acts 1, when the Messiah leaves this earth, he does it on a cloud. He disappears from the sight of those that were watching, his disciples, and as they are looking up, 2 malachim representing the 2 witnesses appear on earth, telling them why are you looking up? And then they tell the disciples that Yahushua, the same one who went up on a cloud, would come to earth in the same way as he left. Most people take that to interpret that the second coming would be coming down literally on a cloud. Yet the 2 malachim that appear there ask them why are they looking up, as saying that they shouldn't. And yet later they say, right after it, that the Messiah would come in like matter. So they were talking about the physical sense of his second coming, not about coming from the heavens. For as we know, the Messiah was prophesied to come from the heavens, and he did, yet spiritually, for he entered Miriam pretty much to be born through her. So I'm not going to get into that because that is part of another chapter, but my point is that when the scripture tells us that the Messiah comes with the clouds, as I already explained also in Revelation 1, it means a lot of things, and most of them are different than what most people think. Because as we know, scriptures are supposed to be interpreted through what scripture tells us, meaning the actual symbolism of every parable and everything that is given in scriptures. The meaning of a certain object, what it represents, is also taught in scriptures themselves. So scriptures are the ones that will interpret themselves. We just need to read them throughout and be able to connect each and everything in order to understand them. So when it comes to clouds, clouds represent, in a negative sense, represent sin. For the Almighty tells us that he will get rid of sin like a cloud taken by the wind, for instance. A cloud brings water, so it represents the bringing of doctrine, of teaching, just like the Messiah is called the water of life, and he is the early rain. The second coming is the latter rain. So the rain comes from the clouds, so the rain comes with the clouds, and the rain is the teaching from the heavens. So those are symbols that the scripture uses in order to teach us deeper things, yet people only see the letter, so they only understand it in a literal sense. And even though the coming of Messiah with the clouds will happen, even in the literal sense, it will happen after every single thing that needs to happen will happen. So my point is that, let's say clouds has 5 different interpretations. The last to be fulfilled will be the literal sense. So since people are waiting for that one, they won't be able to see the previous manifestations of that prophecy. So by the time the Messiah appears on the clouds, literal, they won't be able to be part of that harvest, for they by that time will have rejected the previous manifestations or the previous fulfillments of that same prophecy. So the clouds represent sin in the negative sense. In the positive, represent what brings the teaching, for the teaching is represented by the water as the rain coming from the heavens. Also represents blessing. It represents a covering. So coming in a cloud is similar to the saying, coming like a thief in the night. For if someone comes surrounded by a cloud, you would see a cloud, you wouldn't see the person. And even if the cloud isn't that thick, you would see somebody, a figure within the cloud, but not the actual person. You wouldn't be able to recognize the person. Just like a thief hides himself in the night, pretty much, as well as using certain clothing items in order to hide his or her identity. So, since the Messiah said that he would come like a thief in the night, that is also represented to coming with the clouds, as being covered, coming as the prodigal son, the second coming, that is with sin. That's why the Almighty promised to take away the sin like the cloud. And there are several other things that will be fulfilled with the coming of the two witnesses. One of the two witnesses, the witness like Moshe, is what people would or should call the second coming. Yet, as Christians are waiting for, the second coming to them is the Messiah going by the heavens, taking away everybody from the earth. Yet, like I always say, that wouldn't be a coming to earth, that would be a passing by. So it's very different than what we see in scriptures that will have to happen. So my point is, the Almighty said, I am the first and I am the last. Through that, he was saying several things. One of them, that he would appear twice on earth. And as we see throughout scriptures, he would do it first through the tribe of Yehudah, as he did through Yahushua, and he would do it a second time through the tribe of Yosef. So through two tribes, and that's why in Judaism they expect two messiahs, Messiah ben Yehudah, Messiah ben Yosef. The Messiah or anointed son of Judah and the anointed son of Joseph. So the Almighty said that he would appear twice. But not only that, when the Messiah, the first, Yahushua, came, he told his disciples that he would come back. And that coming back of Messiah can be seen as two things. Either the Almighty himself coming once again, taking flesh, that would be a second coming of manifestation of Yahweh. But when we see it in the strictly personal way, in the sense of Yahushua himself, not Yahweh again coming to earth, but Yahushua the first coming again, he will do it by Revelation 19. Even we could say Revelation 14. Because when the two witnesses appear on earth, of which one is the second manifestation of Yahweh on this earth as the last, when the two witnesses appear on this earth, they are sent to this earth by Yahushua the Lamb, the first. So the last is sent by the first. And I'm sorry that I had an issue with this finger right here, so I'm not able to bend it, so it's going to look weird. But, well, maybe I should use it like this. So the first and the last, the first will send the last. And then, as we see in Ezekiel 37 and Zechariah 14:9 and other parts of scriptures, at the end of time, at the end of history, first and last, once they both resurrected, they will be one. They will be united as one, just like earth and the heavens will be one. The Messiah with his bride, etc. So first and last will become one, and that is when they will gather during the harvest those who have been chosen. And then afterwards would appear on earth to fight in the war of Har-Megiddo. So the Messiah, the Lamb, is the one who opens the first seal, and then we see the second coming on earth. But then when that second coming is killed like the first coming and resurrects like the first coming, he goes up, gets authority by becoming one with the first, and then he himself sounds the seventh horn and harvests the chosen few. By that time, when he will harvest the chosen few, that is the time when he will appear on a cloud, as we see in Revelation 14, in the literal sense. But the whole point of everything that I have been saying is that 3.5 years before that moment in which it will be fulfilled in a literal sense, he will fulfill it in a spiritual sense by appearing appearing as a thief in the night, hidden as in a cloud, by coming as the prodigal son, covered by a cloud of sin that Yahushua gets rid of through his ruach, the wind, the spirit that he gives. Also to bring the teaching of life that comes from the heavens. Also to confirm the covenant, as when Noah made a covenant with the Almighty, or the Almighty made a covenant with Noah through the bow that appeared on the clouds, the rainbow. So the rainbow represents the confirming of the covenant of the heavens that the last will do. And that's why the Messiah said that the last, or the Son of Man, the days of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah. That's why he comes to confirm the covenant with a bow. As we see in Revelation 6, he's riding the white horse and he has a bow and he's given a crown, and he goes conquering and to conquer. So he will completely conquer this earth to give it to the Almighty. How will he conquer it? Through the authority that the Messiah gave us, through his name. So the last comes, fulfills what the Messiah said, and then he receives the power in order to conquer the enemy and conquer this earth, to give it to the Almighty Creator. So he comes with a bow, because Noah made a covenant through a bow. He comes with the clouds because the bow appears on the clouds, and he comes with the teaching, throwing it as the arrows of that bow. And then there's a lot of other things that I have mentioned previously, so I'm not going to get into it. I'm just going to continue, but everything that I just said is because of the fact that the mighty angel was coming with a cloud. So that mighty angel is Michael, is one of the same 7 main angels of the Almighty, the one who represents pretty much the Messiah. And I say that because the Messiah, Yahushua, is before Michael, just like the word is before the voice. First and last, word and voice, arm and hand. So here we see that it is Michael by the fact that he's mighty, coming with a cloud. I saw still another mighty malach coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud. Clothed with a cloud. That is important because it is saying that his clothes is a cloud. So is the fact that it's just like what we see in the heavens when we see the rainbow. It comes clothed with clouds, because if there are no clouds, there won't be a rainbow. So it represents the malach that comes as the prince of the covenant, as we see in Daniel and as we see in Malachi 3, as the malach of the covenant. The angel of the covenant is, according to Daniel, the prince of the covenant. Sadly, in Christianity, they claim that that prince of the covenant is Satan, the Antichrist, in Christianity. But you already know that Daniel, the whole book of Daniel is recorded, so you can go and watch it to understand what is the confusion with that subject. And mainly, you can watch Daniel 9, which is the main chapter in which they get that confused. So, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. So it confirms what I was saying. Not only comes with a cloud, but a rainbow is on his head. So that represents that he remembers the covenant that he must confirm. Also, that he must fulfill or manifest what the Almighty promised through the first covenant. The first covenant that he made with Noah through the bow. Then he made a second covenant, which was the Torah given to Moshe. And then he said through Jeremiah that he would make a new covenant. So, first covenant when the earth was covered in water. And we are told that was the representation of the immersion or the baptism. So John the Baptist as the representation of that first covenant. John the Baptist, as we know, is Eliyahu, Elijah. Then came Moshe, and he was given the Torah, and that was the covenant of the moment. Yet they only received the letter of it, so they weren't able to fulfill it, for they were not able to understand it. For through Moshe came the law and the prophets, but through the Messiah came favor and the truth. So before the Messiah, the truth regarding scriptures was not able to be understood. That is why they weren't able to really fulfill the commandments. So that is why also we shouldn't go back to the time before Messiah in order to try to understand how to fulfill the commandments if we know already that the way they did it was not the way Yahweh was asking for us to fulfill them. So the first covenant through Noah in water as Elijah. The second through Moshe as the witness like Moshe, the prophet like Moshe, who through the spirit that Yahushua gives confirms the covenant and comes as Noah. And then the third would be the new covenant made through the blood of the Messiah. So after the new covenant is made, now the two witnesses must appear to confirm the covenant and explain the Torah. So we see through those three covenants the representation of the three men that Yahweh would send: Elijah, Moshe, and Messiah. Also, when the Almighty made the covenant with Noah through the rainbow, he said that the earth would not be destroyed through water ever again, but he said that next time would be through fire. So to have the rainbow on the head represents to remember that covenant and to remember that this time the earth must be destroyed through fire. That's why, for instance, in Daniel and Ezekiel and also Revelation, we see that there is a part where they see the Almighty on the throne, and one of them sees a rainbow, the other one sees fire. Obviously from the fire comes light, and light reflected makes a rainbow. So it could have been because of a the way or the perspective of each of those prophets, what they were seeing from the perspective from each of their perspectives, the way they said it. Perhaps one was seeing the reflection and that was causing a rainbow, and the other one was just seeing the source of the light, so he just said the fire. Yet a rainbow reminds us of the fire, because the Almighty told us that the rainbow represents the fact that he will destroy the earth with fire. That's why also the Messiah said that the coming of the Son of Man would be like the days of Noah, in the sense that the whole earth will be destroyed, and also as the days of Lot, in the sense that this time will be through fire, as Sodom and Gomorrah. So the mighty Malach, or the great Malach angel, comes with the clouds. In this sense is as Yahuchanan is seeing it, the same way he is telling us, but to represent that it is that same Malach who has to appear on earth as one of the two witnesses, as a thief in the night, clothed with a cloud, a rainbow on his head, because he comes to confirm the covenant as in the days of Noah. So a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun. We see in Malachi 4:2 that in the end the Son of Righteousness would appear. The Son of Righteousness. Yahushua is the light. So one is the source or the essence, the other one is the manifestation or the one that will transmit that light, as in Yahushua being the light and the last being a lamp, in this case the Son of Righteousness. So that's why we are seeing mighty angel represents Michael coming down from heaven, just like Messiah was said to come down from heaven, so meaning second coming, clothed with a cloud, In the negative, as the prodigal son. In the positive, clothed with the teaching, with the water of life, and also the fact that comes as a thief in the night. A rainbow was on his head because he comes to confirm the covenant. He comes to separate the teaching in order to be understood, as a rainbow separates the light into all the colors. So the light is Yahushua. The last comes to give understanding of the light. And Yahushua is wisdom. The last is the understanding. So the Almighty gives, through Messiah, all the light. But then comes the last to be able to separate the light in order to be able to understand it. As when you receive a flash, an idea in your head, and then you have to separate it in order to understand what you just got, or how to understand it better, or how to explain it to somebody else, etc. So the rainbow on his head has to do with the fact that confirms the covenant, separates the teaching of the light, which is Yahushua HaMashiach, in order to understand it better, deeper. And there are several other things that can be said regarding what the rainbow represents, how the light separates, how it represents understanding, seeing Messiah in a different way than what this world has been teaching, for instance. So a rainbow was on his head, also remembering the fire that must come. Remember that John the Baptist said, I immerse you in water, but one is coming who will immerse you in spirit and in fire. Yahushua came and he gave the spirit during Shavuot, Pentecost. But we don't hear anything regarding the fire afterwards. And that is because that is what the last will bring. Yahushua came as the water of life. The last comes as the fire, the consuming fire. So just as John the Baptist immersed in water, Yahushua in the spirit, the last will immerse in fire. So that's why, like the Son of Righteousness, that's why like the rainbow, because it reminds us of the fire that is about to come to the earth. My point is that the fire is for the end. That's why the immersion of fire was mentioned at the end when John said those three things. So, mighty angel, Michael, coming down from heaven. It is also important, like I was saying, this chapter is to show us, to tell us who is one of the two witnesses. Who is the witness like Moshe, the second coming? Is this mighty angel. As we already know, or you may not, but now you know, the next chapter, Revelation 11, is the chapter regarding the two witnesses, which I mention a lot because it is a teaching that it is one of the most important teachings for our time, yet it is one of the teachings that is less talked about in Christianity or any other circle that claims to be filled with believers. So I would say Judaism, but Judaism don't accept the Revelation, the book of Revelation. So sadly, they don't read it. They don't even have it in order to read it. Yet Christians have it, but they don't read it. And even when they read it, they interpret it in a very weird way, or even when they interpret it close to the way it is, they claim that the two witnesses will appear after they disappear in the rapture. So it's all a mess because of the other false doctrines that they hold as absolute truths. So since the two witnesses, of which the one of them is the witness like Moshe, since the two witnesses appear on Revelation 11, which is the next chapter, then we are told in this chapter about the Malach coming down from heaven. Just like Messiah, before being born on this earth, his soul had to come down from heaven. So I saw still another mighty Malach coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, Son of Righteousness, and his feet like pillars of fire, confirming what I was saying, the consuming fire. Also, feet represent the end, and in the end times, the two witnesses would appear, and fire would come out of their mouths. So his feet, like pillars of fire, is also a representation of the fact that he comes as the leader of the other witness, in the sense that he brings the mantle of the Spirit in order to give to the second witness the teaching for him to receive it and also be sacrificed when the time comes. So his feet like pillars of fire. He had a little book open in his hand, a little sefer, or a scroll. He had a little scroll open in his hand. And he said, his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. This is very similar to what we read in Daniel. Let's go to Daniel 12. In Daniel 12, I will read like super quick. At that time, Michael shall stand up, and that confirms, well, I haven't read the part that I want to read, but my point is that the whole chapter begins with the fact that Michael must stand up on this earth, meaning he must manifest on this earth as a man. And that is what will happen on Revelation 11, for which we are being prepared on Revelation 10. So at that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince, who stands watch over the sons of your people, the great prince, because he will become the great king. Yahushua came as the great priest, Kohen Gadol, the high priest. So the last comes as the great prince, because he will become the great king by becoming one with Yahushua and therefore with the Father. So the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, the tribulation, such as never was since there was a nation, the worst time ever, even to that time. So even to our generation, it'll be the worst time. So even though we are in the worst generation of all, what is coming is worse than anything we have lived or seen in the past. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. Look how we just started the first verse mentioning Michael, and now it mentions a book. In Revelation, when it starts, well, Revelation 5, we see that the Lamb has the book, is given to him because he is the only one that can open the book of life. And that book has 7 seals. When he opens the first seal is when the second coming starts, the second manifestation of Yahweh on this earth. When he opens the first seal is when Michael stands up. So when the Lamb is starting to open, starts to open the book, Michael reveals himself on this earth as one of the 2 witnesses. He won't say he's Michael. I'm just saying he will manifest on this earth. He will stand up. So we see that by the first seal, the Lamb is opening that book. On the first trumpet, we see that the Lamb finished opening the book, because the last seal are the 7 trumpets. So when we get to the first trumpet, he already opened the book completely. But before the 7th seal, before the 7th trumpet, we see Michael with a scroll, with a book. So my point is that there are several connections with the seals, the trumpets, Messiah, and Michael, both having a book, as in Yahushua being the word and Michael the one who reveals what that word is. That's why he is the voice. As in the wisdom, somebody might get some wisdom, but he may not understand it. So it's as hearing another language other than the one you speak. So the Messiah brought the wisdom, but the last must bring understanding. That's why the difference between the light and the rainbow, separating the light so that we may see all the colors and understand it better. So they both have a book. Here we see that in Daniel 12 starts speaking about Michael, and that same verse says, "And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book." What book? The book of life, which the Messiah will begin to open, and when he does start to open that book, Michael will stand up. My point is how everything is connected. I just want to make that clear, but that wasn't even the part I wanted to show. So I'll continue. In verse 4 says, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." So just like the Almighty sealed the book of life, and only the Messiah who died for our sins can open it, and he will do it, and he's about to, the Almighty is telling Daniel to seal his own book. And pretty much the point of that sentence is that the Almighty wouldn't give understanding of the book of Daniel until the end would come, and then everything would be understood. So the book of Daniel was sealed so that people wouldn't understand it. And that is one of the reasons why when the Messiah came, they didn't recognize him. For Daniel, in Daniel 9, said the year when he would appear and the fact that he would have to die. Daniel wrote that the Messiah would appear, he would be killed, and then the temple would be destroyed. And that's the order in which everything happened, yet still people won't accept it. Jewish people. So the Almighty told him to shut up the words so that people wouldn't get it, and seal the book until the time of the end, our time. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase, as it has. Exponentially. Well, it depends on people also, because just as knowledge, or the possibility for us to acquire knowledge, has increased, sadly, people, because of that possibility, have pretty much rejected it, knowing that it is available. They don't it is not like back in the day when people would make an effort to learn stuff. Nowadays people don't really care about learning, because they know that anytime they want, they can go and access a certain type of information. So since they can access it anytime through their phone, they don't really work to know it, and therefore they don't have it in their heads, they don't have it in their minds, and that becomes an issue, because that's why we see so many people who just like Hosea 4:6 says, "For lack of knowledge my people are destroyed." That is amazing, because that is a verse that has been fulfilled many times throughout history, but it will be completely fulfilled in the greatest sense in our time. Yet our time is the time in which knowledge shall increase, and it has, as we know, thankfully, for those who really want knowledge. For we know that knowledge, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding are more valuable than gold and silver. Yet nowadays most people want the gold and silver and don't care at all about knowledge. So even though knowledge has increased, fulfilling this, "For lack of knowledge my people are destroyed," fulfilling Hosea. So it seems to be a contradiction, yet for those with eyes to see, we can obviously understand that both verses have been fulfilled. Knowledge has increased. You can look in Google for anything you want, and you will receive knowledge of it. Not only that, the Almighty has given us knowledge of things that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and obviously even more, people could not understand regarding scriptures, regarding the Messiah, his name, the name of the Father, etc. So knowledge has increased, but people reject it. So they will be destroyed for rejecting the knowledge that Yahweh made available. Then it says, "Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood two others." So listen to this. The Messiah, before entering the flesh, he appeared to Daniel. He's speaking to Daniel. And then Daniel sees two other people on each side, just like when the Messiah transfigured. When the transfiguration happened, Moshe and Eliyahu appeared right next to the Messiah, one on each side. The same is what is happening here. So the Messiah appeared, and then the two witnesses appeared. So it says, and there stood two others, one on this riverbank and the other on that riverbank. And one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, above the waters of the river. The Messiah walked on water. He was above the waters, while the other two were on either side on the riverbank. So one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, and well, is about to say the time. Now, my point is that we see here Messiah above the water, and then the two witnesses on each riverbank. Now that the Messiah has appeared already, died and resurrected, is in heaven, about to open the book of life, now that the two witnesses are about to appear, we read that it says, verse 2 of Revelation 10, he had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. So through Messiah in Daniel, we read about him appearing on a river, which has water that one can drink, as the water of life, Yahushua himself, for the chosen few. But now, the last, represented by Michael, has one foot on the sea, which represents the nations, to whom he comes to, speak regarding the plagues that must fulfill, and one foot on the land, representing the believers who are in rebellion, following a false doctrine, and who will have to die in order to be justified. And in order for them to be justified, they first need to hear the two witnesses speak, at least their doctrine. So, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. And like I said, each foot represents one of the witnesses. And cried with a loud voice. So my point is, we saw river in Daniel regarding Messiah as the river of life. Now we see Michael, the last, who comes with two portions as the firstborn, with two mantles, as we see in Isaiah 42 and other parts of scriptures. And that is why he has one foot on the land, one foot on the sea. So the Messiah will be over the chosen few who have accepted the river, the water of life. The last will be over the many and the nations, in the sense of ruling over them. Obviously, the Messiah is the one who rules everything, but that ruleship was given to the chosen few who believe in him. And of those chosen few, Yahweh sets up the last as leader. So even though the Messiah, like I said, is the one above the few, and the last, the one above the many and the nations, when the first and last become one, he will be above everything. I'm just separating it so that we may understand it according to both manifestations. Verse 3 says, and cried with a loud voice, as when a lion roars. That shows that he is the voice of Yahweh, who comes to fulfill the Lion of Yehudah. For even though he comes from Yosef, by accepting the Messiah as his root, he becomes the branch of David. For Yahushua is the root of David. So by the last accepting the Messiah Yahushua, even though he comes genetically from Joseph, he fulfills being the branch of David as the lion. The Messiah came as the lamb, the last comes as the lion to bring judgment. So that's why it says, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. Interestingly enough, in Revelation 6, when the witness like Moshe is about to be sent into the world to preach It is the lion of the four creatures that are around the throne. It is the lion, the one who announces. The witness like Moshe, just like right now, him crying with a loud voice is heard as a lion. Then he says, when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. We see in scriptures that when thunder happened, there's one time in which the Messiah heard thunder, and some people thought it was just thunder, others said it was an angel. Yet the Messiah revealed that it was the Almighty himself speaking to him. So he understood the voice of the Father. Those on a lower level than the Messiah understood that it was a malach, and those on an even lower level heard only thunder. Those are pretty much the 3 levels that I was just saying. Those who are of the river of Messiah will listen to the Father directly. Those who are on land will see an angel, in the sense that they will be on a lower level, not being able to get to see the Almighty face to face, so they will have to see his angel, the malach, the last. And then the nations who do not understand anything, they just hear nature, they just hear noise, as those who worship idols and have ears but cannot hear. So even when they hear scriptures, they do not understand them. So thunder represents a revelation from the heavens by the Father. The sound of it represents the voice of the Father. So here we see a malach, he speaks, and thunders are uttered. 7 of them. 7 represents completion. That's why this creation was completed in 7 days. So also it was created through 10 sayings. That's why the 10 is connected to the heavenly perfection, and the 7 to earthly completion. Also, the Torah is made up of 5 books. In Judaism, they separate the book of Numbers into 3. So the Torah becomes 7 books. So we could see the Torah as 7 books when we see that separation in the book of Numbers. Or if we include, after the Torah, if we include the prophets and the writings, then we have once again 7. So the fact that the 7 also is seen in the menorah, also there are 7 congregations, also there are 7 angels that are right before the Father Almighty. All of that connects with this malach revealing to Yahuchanan what will be pretty much the teaching or Torah of the next life that we will enter through the transformation of the 7th trumpet. So this is the malach that will sound the 7th trumpet. Before that happens, he must appear on earth to preach for 3.5 years with the teaching of the Creator, with everything that I said before. I'm not going to repeat it, but everything is important, of course, each detail that was said right before this. And now it says, when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. So 7 revelations. We could see them, I repeat, as the completion or the complete Torah for the next life. Also, the fact that the Torah for the next life would be given here is because here the end of this reality is happening. So since the end of this reality is happening, and it is only in this reality that you will be able to kill another person, that you will be able to lie, and people won't know, until the time comes, and all of those things that allow us to go against the will of the Father, for he is hidden. Since he is hidden, people are able to hide in lies, in the dark, as thieves, etc. But once the light comes, that won't happen anymore. So the verse that says the person that kills must be killed, for instance, that verse, the Almighty will rearrange the letters of that verse so the Torah will be exactly the same. For the Torah is eternal. Yet there are verses that will be rearranged using the same exact letters in order to give us a deeper, higher revelation for the new life. For in the next life, there are certain things of this life that won't happen. Certain things of this life will not be transferred to the next. Therefore, there are certain things in the Torah that won't be applied. And since they won't apply to the next life, the Almighty will rearrange those letters in order to give us what will apply for that life. So, since this reality would be coming to an end, since we would be entering right by this time already the 7th millennium, about to sound the 7th trumpet, then 7 thunders are heard by the 7th angel of the 7 congregations in order to give the instruction for that 7 millennium and for eternity. So, when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. So 7 revelations. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered, and do not write them. So, well, I'm seeing that there are some issues. Like the image is getting stuck. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. As I was saying, well, when he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. Now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write. So Yahushua heard the revelation and he was ready to write it down for us. Would have been wonderful. But the Almighty didn't allow him to do so because that revelation is not for our time. It's for the time that we are about to experience once we are transformed. Meaning, once we are transformed during the 7th trumpet, then we'll receive that revelation, that understanding that we need. But I repeat, it's not for this time. For if Yahushua had revealed it, then those who are not going to enter eternity would have known what it is. Yet they are not worthy of knowing what is written in that book. Just like nobody was worthy to open the book of life, in which the names of those who will be transformed and resurrected for life, for eternal life, are found. So he was about to write it down. It says, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered, and do not write them. So just like Daniel, in Daniel 12, as we just saw, he was told to seal up that book. Yahushua is being told the same regarding the 7 thunders that he heard. As we know, the book of Revelation, the Almighty told John not to seal it, as he told Daniel that he should seal it, because Daniel came way before our time. So he came pretty much, well, like 500 years before Messiah. So his book was sealed until the end times. After Daniel, hundreds of years later, came the Messiah. Then he died, resurrected, and left. And then he sent his revelation through his malach to John, Yahushua. And he was told not to seal it, for the time was close. But when it comes to the 7 thunders, he was told to seal that knowledge and not give it yet, for it is for the next time, for the next life. Meaning then that it is such splendor knowledge, such great knowledge that we must follow Messiah, follow the Almighty, fulfill the commandments in order to be part of that new life, so that we may be able to get to know what was revealed here. So, I hope that's understood, and the reason why I was saying before reading this other verse that this seems to be what the Torah will be, what the book that we will read forever, um, what will be found in that book. I'm sure that reading and books and teaching will be a lot different in that time. Of course, it is said that we won't need others to teach us anything in that time. But it's also said that a child will prophesy and pretty much teach an old person. So knowledge will come from all places, all people, all the time. But here we see that there is certain knowledge, as the scripture itself, that will be given for those who are transformed, meaning that those who won't be transformed are not worthy of knowing that knowledge. Part of it could be what, well, let's say, since, okay, when Moshe went up for the Torah, went to the heavens, it is said that certain angels wanted to kill him and were against the idea of giving the Torah, which is something so exalted, to such a lowly creation as a human. So the Almighty told the angels that why would they want that? That was a sign that they did not understand Torah. For Torah was written for men. For most of the commandments found in the Torah cannot be fulfilled by an angel or in the second heaven. So it was obvious that it was created to be given to men. So if one had knowledge before and let's say hypothetically a man was able to exist before creation, and he was given the Torah in order to read it, and he had knowledge of what is written instead of the way angels understood it, that person would read scriptures and would realize a lot of things regarding this world. For the scriptures are the manual for this world. We would know that man was separated in two, male and female. So we would know also about sin, and we would know about killing, and we would know about every single thing. For everything about this life is found in scriptures. So my point is, we can get an idea of what this world is by simply reading scriptures. You don't have to actually go out and live a life. You can read scriptures and know what life is. So my point is that if John had revealed this knowledge, people would finally realize what the other world will be in a better, clearer way. And then they would try and get it for the wrong reasons. As for instance, when Noah went all over the place telling everybody that the earth was going to be destroyed, nobody believed. But once the rain was falling, once it was revealed, then they wanted it. But it was not for the right reason, so they had to be destroyed instead. It is also written that no ear has heard, no eye has seen, nor heart has received what the Almighty has prepared for those who love Him. Yet the Spirit reveals it to us. So the Spirit reveals part of it. For Paul also says that right now we see as through a dark mirror, meaning a mirror made of brass. So we now see in a shadow, but in the next life we will see face to face. So as I was saying, the revelation given here is for the next life. People in this life cannot understand what that life is. Even those who have the spirit receive a little bit of that understanding, but it's just a little bit. It's very obscure. When we get to live it, we will be able to experience everything that meant what the spirit has told us. But that is for those who actually have the spirit. Most of the world doesn't, even if they claim to have it, for they call it Holy Spirit, but that is the spirit of the Son. Through worship of the Son, they get that spirit, the Holy Spirit. So it is a different spirit. They may have a spirit, but it's not the spirit of Yahweh. It is called the spirit of error. So it doesn't teach the whole truth. It may teach a truth, but then adds an error, and then that becomes a false doctrine. So, when he cried out, seven thunders uttered their voices. Now when the seven thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the seven thunders uttered, and do not write them. So he wasn't allowed to write them, but we shouldn't worry or feel bad about it, for thankfully we will eventually know what was said there, what was revealed there, and we will be able to experience it. It is the people of the world who reject knowledge, who reject Yahweh, who won't be able to receive it, for they won't enter that time. This should give us strength, well, at least for those who love knowledge, give us strength to persevere till the end in order to receive everything that the Almighty has for us. So, verse 5. The angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it. So everything. So that no angel, no entity may say that he made one thing or the other. For even if they were used to do something in creation, they were as tools. Like, for instance, a person may have, well, whatever job he may have, he may create something. And that's something that he may create, he may find it, well, let's say it takes too long to create that thing that he's creating. So he might come up with an idea to create a tool to help him build that faster. And that is being even smarter than he was by the fact that he uses something else. He uses his intellect in order to create something else in order to help him to work faster. And that is done in every area of our lives. We find shortcuts, we find better ways to do it, and that's why well, technology has increased so much. Well, not only because of that, also occult knowledge and knowledge from the fallen angels and all of that. But my point is that I say all this explanation, which I know is very simple and easy to understand, because in Judaism they see it as a heresy to believe that the Almighty would use an angel to create something. They think it's heresy because that would mean that the angel created it. However, that's not really what it is, because if Yahweh created the angels, then anything that the angels do or create would be created by he who created the angels. Obviously, not taking in account the evil that the angels do. However, even if we wanted to, in Isaiah 45:7, we see how the Almighty is the one who creates darkness and forms light. So since he creates darkness, he does it through the creations that he made at first. Those creations think to be in rebellion, so they do things unlike what the Almighty wants, and those things are what pretty much led humans to sin and death, destruction, and all evil. So the point is that the Almighty, as a king, says the word and everything was created. Just like when a king says he wants to have a bridge, and then he has a bridge and he calls it by his name and he says that he built it, even though through his word there were people who were sent with his authority to do the work. And that is part of being a king, as the Almighty is king. So when the Creator did everything, he himself hid from his creation. So his creation, not only humans but also angels, some of them have thought that the Almighty is not watching, that the Almighty created and left. So some angels had thought that they can keep creation for themselves by fooling humanity into allowing them to rule them. Hope that's understood. So that's why we are in a war, spiritual war, against principalities and authorities in the heavens. So verse 5, then the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be delay no longer. I find it very interesting that, as always, as I always mention, for those who always listen to the studies of this ministry and also, well, in Spanish, every time that we read scriptures, it kind of connects with the time in which we are, one way or another. And with other studies that we've made in those days, like for instance, as you know, I make studies on Monday, Tuesday, pretty much Wednesday, which is the radio, Thursday, and Saturday, but most of the time it's in Spanish, and they always connect one way or another, even though I'm reading different books, and even though I started reading like a year back. For depending on the book, it might take like a year to read the whole thing the way we do it. So as we know, as I mentioned earlier, we are ending the year tonight, and the year that is about to start tomorrow obviously starts with Aviv, the first month in the Hebrew calendar, and that is the month in which Pesach happens, which is when the Messiah came, died, and resurrected afterwards. And as I have explained, just like the Messiah ended on Matzot, unleavened bread, the feast of unleavened bread, now the two witnesses will begin on Matzot. So I find it very interesting, as I had said, that everything seems to point to the last week of Daniel starting very soon. We are so close because of all the signs that it could even start this next year that is about to begin tomorrow. And if it does, it would begin in about 2 weeks with the two witnesses starting their ministry. And like I said, the chapter regarding the two witnesses is the one following. So by next week, which would be 1 week before Matzot, we will be reading the chapter of the two witnesses. As a matter of fact, it's such a long chapter, or at least the information regarding it, that we might last 2 weeks. So we most likely will be reading the chapter of the two witnesses in the day in which the two witnesses would begin their ministry, if everything starts this year as it appears, for a bunch of reasons, a bunch of signs. There are way too many, all fulfilled at the same time. So it could very well happen. As a matter of fact, remember that I made a calculation regarding the year in which we would be at the moment, and if the calculation was right, it would be pretty much the year 1998, the one we would enter. 1998 as after Messiah, of course. So 5,998. And that would be the beginning. So if that calculation is correct, I may not, I may have missed something, but if that calculation is correct, then we would be in the beginning in just a couple weeks. And not only that, I started saying all of that because we read here that it says there should be delay no longer. And that is amazing. As if the Almighty was telling us at the end of a year, as we are right now, that He won't delay the end no longer. And my point is that it is interesting to read something about time and times at the end of a year, meaning to read about the end times on the end of a time. And also, I had seen in my time reading scriptures and teaching scriptures a couple years throughout, let's say, just the 7 years of the ministry, almost 8 now. I had seen a couple years, mainly one, in which everything seems to be so very well, pretty much set up for the end. Yet it didn't happen, obviously, and it could have been obviously because it just wasn't the time, or because the Almighty decided to delay it for whatever reason, like the two witnesses not being ready or whatever. And I say that in the sense that even if He had to delay it for whatever reason, that delay was already seen from the beginning of time, so it was counted in the time, just in case. There are no mistakes for the Father. But from our perspective, it seems like it could have happened a long time ago for all the signs that have been happening. So that's why the more time passes, the more we may think that it's about to start. The fact that He says that delay no longer, there should be delay no longer, kind of points to the fact that there was a delay, but there won't be a delay anymore. And I repeat, reading this on the last day of the year, about to start a year that could be the beginning of the last 7, I find it very interesting, and I don't believe in coincidences. And by the also, like I said, we are going to read Revelation 11, which is the two witnesses, next. So that may be a little confirmation. I wouldn't find it little, but for those who don't believe in those type of confirmations, that seems like a little confirmation from the Father. So it's very nice. So it says that there should be delay no longer. So when the Malach is going to manifest on earth to reveal the teaching of the Creator as one of the two witnesses, that is the beginning of the last 7 years. Once the 7 years start, there won't be a delay for everything else. For once it starts, every date, every amount of days that will be fulfilled, every plague and everything is already set up for each day of that week of years mentioned in Daniel 9. So that there should be delay no longer. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th Malach, which is the one here speaking, which is Michael, which to be able to sound the trumpet, he first has to die and resurrect. But by the time that he resurrects, he's given authority, he sounds the trumpet, then everything is over. For at least when it comes to the mercy that the Almighty has given to humans for them to be able to be saved without dying. So it says that there should be delay no longer, but in the days of the sounding of the 7th Malach, when he is about to sound, the mystery of Elohim would be finished. When he is about to sound, he is about to sound the 7th trumpet when he resurrects. So he's pretty much saying when the last resurrects, then everything is done. It's over. Everything will be already fulfilled. And look what it says. But in the days of the sounding of the seventh angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of Yahweh would be finished. What mystery? Everything that has been revealed through the prophets will be finished. This is very important for several reasons. Hopefully I remember all of them. One of them, when the Messiah was on the cross dying, he said, "It is finished. It is finished." But he was referring to his part. He was referring to what he had to fulfill. For we read here that when the seventh trumpet sounds, then it is finished. As a matter of fact, it says about to sound. And like I said, the two witnesses, in this case the witness like Moshe, dies right before the seventh trumpet sounds. If we read Revelation 11, the two witnesses die, resurrect, and then the seventh trumpet sounds in the same chapter. So we see that it correlates to when the Messiah came. When he is about to sound, the mystery of Yahweh will be finished. Yahushua came, but his coming to the earth was a mystery to humans. So they rejected him and killed him. After he was killed, it was revealed through the Ruach that he fulfilled the prophecies. So that mystery was revealed, was finished. For when he died, he said, "It is finished." Also, we could even say that when he said "it is finished," he referred to everything. For everything was connected to that moment in time. Everything regarding eternal life, regarding resurrection, was connected to the Messiah dying and resurrecting for us. But when it comes to the chronological order in which everything would be fulfilled, there are still certain things to be completed, to be manifested. Like I said, when the Messiah died, he said, "It is finished." Now we are seeing here that about that before the trumpet sounds, the two witnesses will die. And that is when the complete mystery of Yahweh will be finished. Yahushua finished his part, then comes the last to finish his part. When both finish their part, everything will be fulfilled, for each part will become one and a whole. Wisdom and understanding, so that the mystery may be revealed. So when he is about to sound, the mystery of Yahweh would be finished, as he declared to his servants the prophets. So the prophets revealed the coming of the first and the coming of the last. People didn't get the coming of the first, and they won't get the coming of the last. But once the first and last have already come and died, then everything will be fulfilled. Everything will be finished. And only those who have accepted first and last will be given the understanding of the whole mystery. For those who remain on earth, even though the mystery is finished, revealed, and everything, those who remain on earth and rejected the two witnesses will be as beasts, because they get the mark of the beast. And since they are as beasts, they are not able to understand intellect. They are not able to understand the mystery of Yahweh, as he declared to his servants the prophets. Then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again, and said, "Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the Malach who stands on the sea and on the earth." Go, take the little sefer, the little scroll which is open in the hand of the Malach who stands on the sea and on the earth. So I went to the Malach. This is, remember that the Malach represents Mikael. Yahuchanan represents Yahuchanan the Immerser. They have the same name. Yahuchanan the Immerser was Elijah. As Yahushua said, if you can receive it, he is Eliyahu who was to come. So, Yahuchanan, the Revelator, in this case, represents Yahuchanan the Immerser. That's why he's being told to go to the Malach and get the book from him, get the revelation from him, because Eliyahu must come to the witness like Moshe in order to receive the doctrine for which they will both die. So Yahuchanan and Mikael as the witness like Eliyahu and the witness like Moshe. Yahuhanan goes to get the book from the Malach, for Eliyahu must get the teaching from the witness like Moshe, just like Aharon received the teaching from his brother Moshe. So then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me. So the Father also, it's interesting that when the Messiah asked the disciples who he was, who he is, Peter said, "You are the Messiah." And the Messiah said that was revealed by the Father, for flesh and blood cannot reveal those things of the Spirit. So to be able to understand and know who the two witnesses are, only the Father Almighty can reveal it. Only the Father can reveal who the two witnesses are. Even themselves cannot reveal it, in the sense that they must give honor to the Messiah, not to look for honor for themselves, for then their testimony would be void, null. So they, just like the Messiah came to give honor to the Father, now the witness like Moshe comes to give honor to the Son. So only the Father can reveal who are the two witnesses. The two witnesses, I repeat, won't be saying out loud who they are. They won't be claiming to be. That would only be revealed to their sheep, their people. And I say sheep in the sense that he comes as the good shepherd. So the sheep hear the voice of the good shepherd, recognize him, and go after him. We see here, then the voice which I heard from heaven, meaning the Father, spoke to Yahuhanan and told him, "Go to him." So the Father will tell the people who are chosen to go to the witness like Moshe, who is giving the teaching. So the Father will reveal to the people who is Mikael, who is the witness like Moshe, who is the one whom they must listen for the revelation. So then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, "Go, take the little book which is open in the hand of the Malach, who stands on the sea and on the earth." Who stands, just like we saw in Daniel, that Mikael will stand up. He will stand on the earth and the sea, meaning he will go and preach to the people of Yahweh, the land, and to the nations, the sea. So I went to the Malach and said to him, "Give me the little book," representing Eliyahu going to Moshe and asking him to receive, to give him the revelation. And he said to me, "Take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth." So this is also connected to what happened with Ezekiel and other parts of Scripture. Ezekiel is called Son of Man many times. Ezekiel represents the second coming, the last, the witness like Moshe. So that's why he goes through something very similar to this. When it comes to scriptures, to knowledge, knowledge is sweet in our mouth when we get to read it, know it, explain it. But when we get to understand it, as when we digest food, it is bitter, for it teaches us what we are doing wrong, what we must change, what we must do, the plagues that are coming, the fact that people that we love may suffer, and that is bitterness. So here we see the connection of that book that the Malach had with scriptures. And the Malach himself is saying that everything will be revealed, the mystery will be finished. That's why the book was open on his hand, because now everything can be read. Yet only those who eat of the book, meaning only those who go to the witness like Moshe to receive the revelation from him. So the witness like Moshe, as Mikael, is bringing an open book. When you call a person an open book is when that person is sincere, honest, reveals everything regarding himself. So the last comes with an open book because he comes to reveal the scriptures in a clear way, not as Yahushua, who explained it through parables. So the last comes with an open book. The people, as the witness like Eliyahu, who is represented by Yohanan, must go to the witness like Moshe and ask for that knowledge. He will give that knowledge, but that knowledge will be bitter once it is understood. For part of that knowledge is the suffering that the world will go through and all of that. Hope that's understood. So I went to the Malach and said to him, give me the little scroll. And he said to me, take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter. The knowledge of it, the understanding of that knowledge, will bring bitterness. I already said what? Then it says, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. Sweet as honey. It is written that the words of Yahweh are as sweet as honey. So the words that were found on that little book were the words of Yahweh. So it was a revelation from the Father, given to Yohanan through the Malach. So take and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. In Ezekiel 3 verse 1, it says, moreover he said to me, son of man. So we see there that Ezekiel is called son of man, which is a title used for Messiah. Yet Messiah himself used it in the third person, because he was talking about himself and about the second coming. And even when he was talking about himself, it was, as I always say, what one fulfills spiritually, the other one will fulfill in the literal sense. Yahushua fulfilled being the son of man spiritually, for he was son of Joseph, yet Joseph did not put his seed on Miriam. So Miriam was virgin when she had Mashiach. That's why we read in Genesis 3 that Messiah would be called the seed of the woman, because he would come from a virgin. But the Son of Man, in the literal sense, represents the second coming. So when it comes to the literal sense, the first is the seed of a woman, and the last is the Son of Man. But since the Messiah came as a man and as a son, he could also use that title. Yet he would use it in the third person because he was referring to the last coming to earth, and that's why he would say the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah. The coming of the Son of Man will be like Lot. Here we are seeing that Yahweh was calling Ezekiel son of man. So Ezekiel represents the second coming. Moreover, he said to me, son of man, eat what you find. Eat this scroll and go speak to the house of Israel. So just like Yohanan was given a scroll to eat, here we are seeing Ezekiel getting a scroll to eat as the two witnesses. Ezekiel the last, witness like Moshe. Yohanan, as I was mentioning, like Eliyahu in this sense. So Ezekiel is given a scroll, a book. He eats it, and then he's told to go and teach. So to read a book is to eat it. To get to understand is to digest it. So even if he was given a vision in which he actually ate a book, which would be like what would happen in a dream. In a dream, one could eat a book and it wouldn't seem weird in the dream. So that could have happened in the vision, but it represents the reading of the book. So it could also have happened through the symbolism, being told and he understanding what that meant, and he just wrote that he ate it as a metaphor. But my point is that through reading this, we should understand what eating a book means. So we speak to the house of Israel. So the last comes after eating the book, reading the scriptures, receiving the revelation, so that he can talk to the people and give them knowledge of it. Speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat the scroll. And he said to me, Son of man, feed your belly and fill your stomach with this scroll that I give you. So I ate, and it was in my mouth like honey in sweetness. Then he said to me, Son of man, go to the house of Israel and speak with my words to them. For you are not sent to a people of unfamiliar speech and of hard language, but to the house of Israel. So we see there that he ate the book, the scroll, which was sweet in his mouth, meaning there were the words of Yahweh, and he went to speak to the house of Israel, those words which he had just eaten. So, going back to Revelation 10. Verse 9, so I went to the Malach and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take it and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. Then I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it. Out of the angel's hand. The last represents the hand of Yahweh. So from the hand of Yahweh is that one must receive that knowledge. And it was as sweet as honey in my mouth, just as it is sweet to confess the name of the Father and the Son. It is sweet to be able to receive his revelation, the knowledge of him. But when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. But when we receive it, the flesh fights against it. The flesh doesn't want to be subject to the spirit. We must, by the use of willpower, we must subject the flesh to the commandments, to the truth, to the Messiah. But the flesh will fight against it. So it will be bitter for the flesh to know, for instance, when it comes to those that will die, it is bitter for the flesh to know that it has to die. It is bitter for the flesh to know that this world is temporal, even though flesh itself knows that it is temporal. So my point is, even though the flesh dies, the human rejects the thought of dying through his or her entire life until the time comes. And many really fight with that moment of passing through to the other life. And I'm saying all of that in the sense that it is sweet to the spirit, to the soul, but it is bitter to the flesh. And the other interpretation that I already mentioned, it has to do with how sweet it is to know the Father and to have the knowledge that he has given us, but it is bitter to know that we have failed him in our lives. It is bitter to know that people will have to suffer, that people we love are in a lie. That is bitterness. But when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. There are some who, because of this, believe that John the Revelator, Yahushua, would have to be reincarnated in the end times to come and preach again because of what is being said here. And like I said, he is a representation of Eliyahu, so that could be what is being said here, that he is the representation of Eliyahu, and in his life, even after this moment, he had to still preach, he had to still teach what he had received. And after this moment, he still had some of the revelation to write and give it to us. And through his revelation, through his writings, he would speak and preach to us even throughout the past 2,000 years. So he fulfilled it even after death. But some take it to mean that he would have to come back again to this earth, reincarnated, either as one of the two witnesses, which would fulfill the part of Eliyahu, or as one of the 144,000. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples. We see that it is very similar to what we saw with Ezekiel. Ezekiel was told, eat the book and now go and preach. John was told, eat the book you still need to prophesy. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples. Here we are ending pretty much the first half of the last 7. So it could also be seen as Yahushua being told, you still have 3.5 years to reveal. You still have 3.5 years of plagues to write about. So you must prophesy it again. You must prophesy again about many peoples, the nations that will be left on earth after the transformation, after the harvest. Nations, tongues, and kings. When we read Revelation 13, we see that all peoples from all nations, all tongues, all peoples will need to get a mark, the mark of the beast. And they will all be condemned because they all knew about the mark of the beast that was written on scriptures and that will be also taught by the 2 witnesses. So not only the revelation of the Father is given for us to get to know him, but it's also given to condemn those that reject him, for they won't have an excuse, for they knew. And not only they knew from hearing, they also had access to the writing, and they had time to study it, and they were told to reject it, etc., etc., meaning the mark of the beast. So when he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. So that's how the chapter ends, and Yahweh bless you.